Hi, this is Jonathan Jay, and welcome to one of my behind the scenes videos where you will see the recording of one of my business buying strategies podcast episodes. On this episode, we're going to meet Alan Finley. Now, Alan is part of my private client program where he's learning how to buy a business effectively, but Alan actually has just sold his business in a very interesting management buyout. So this interview focuses on the sale of that business and how he did it. I hope you enjoy it.
I managed to sell my business, or
Yes.
the vast majority of it. I've kept a little bit to get some downstream value. And actually, the sector that we were in was consulting and recruitment. So my background has been in big corporates. So I spent about 10 years working at Vodafone, a few years working in banks. Doing all the data analytics and marketing stuff. Okay. So I left there, set out on my own doing consulting, and then thought everywhere I went, they had the same problem of finding great staff and pulling teams together. Mm-hmm. And I loved doing that. So thought actually, rather than just me recommending people, I'll start putting them through my consulting business. Yes. Started to grow that, and then really came to a crossroads where it was either do it properly as a business or don't do it at all. Because I was working all hours, going in, delivering projects, trying to sign contracts with the co-op, John Lewis, Vodafone, whoever it was, and then providing the staff and doing everything myself. And I thought, you know what, build a business, run it as a business, and then exit at some point. Which happened 10 days ago, which is great. I'm your management team.
You must feel elated. I'd love to find out about the sales process, because obviously on this podcast we talk mostly about buying, and I know that's your plan now for the future, and that's obviously how we know each other. So I'd like to understand the sales process. How long was it from you seriously deciding to push the button on a sale to the actual execution 10 days ago?
Yeah, probably 2.5 years, maybe 3.
Quite a long period.
Yeah, and probably the most frustrating process that I've ever been involved with. You know, buying a house or buying a business is going to be a damn sight easier.
Oh, it is.
And actually, I took some wrong turns and made some fundamental errors because I've never done it before. And actually took some advice, went down one dead end, then went another dead end, and then ultimately got it across the line. So the process started, actually, we were doing pretty well. We'd got the business to probably 6 million in turnover. We had a growing junior staff, but the problem was there was nobody to replace me as an individual. So it was a lot of my contacts, and I was client lead on pretty much everything. So I had to try and replace myself, first of all, if I was going to sell the business and not do an earn-out, because I don't want to do an earn-out.
Naturally, and I understand that. No one wants to do that.
Yeah. So then I hired 2 great guys that I'd known for ages, great consulting experience. You know, I trust them more than I trust myself on a client engagement, and thought, brilliant, right, now I've replaced myself. I'll give them more ownership of the business in terms of day-to-day leadership and all the rest of it. And then I'll be able to sell it. So from day one of encouraging them to come on board with some shares, some incentive, to then actually having the PE conversations, probably was about 12 to 15 months, because we wanted to see these guys run the business for a while. And we got to heads of terms with a PE company. They gave us, this was via a broker actually, and they gave us everything that we wanted on paper. And then you start unpeeling the layers of warranties, the reliance on, so that business plan that you've set out, you are going to deliver that yourself personally. And by the way, if you don't, then actually your value actually starts eroding rather rapidly. And yes, we're borrowing, we're putting debt on the business that, and in the end, I was like, well, okay, so I would get a bit of cash. I'd have to do, they still wanted me around, so I'd have to do a portion of earnout. But my value was linked to the future performance of the business for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and private equity people are professional buyers, so they de-risk because they're spending their investors' money, so they de-risk as far as possible, and they will on the surface be offering everything that you want, but like you say, when you go beneath the surface, you discover that maybe it's not all as rosy, and you would work harder than you've ever worked before with a very hard taskmaster as a boss. And quite frankly, if you don't perform, you'll be out of your own company with nothing to show for it.
Yeah, and so, of course, none of that kind of risk element was kind of explained to me up front by the broker that we were using. Yeah, oh, we can sell this, no problem. Let's go. Great. And actually, we had three companies interested because it was a slightly different model, and they were going to use it as a platform to buy other recruitment companies and other consulting firms. So it was interesting, but ultimately the risk involved with it, when you look at it through cold eyes rather than hurrah, it was any downturn in the economy, bad news for the business. And that kind of business is selling every single day. It's very different from a long-term revenue,
So it's all transactional rather than contracted recurring revenue. So every morning you start with a blank slate. At the end of each month, you've either hit your target or you haven't, but you've got a brand new target on the first of the month.
Yeah. I'm actually only 30. Working in that business for 6-7 years.
That type of business where you wake up every morning having to start again, effectively go and find new customers, is a tiring one to run. It's a bit of a hamster wheel, isn't it?
Yeah, and so what I was really looking for was to get out of that kind of model and work on something new that is much more recurring revenue. So I tried the PE route. We even had a look at the employee ownership trust model, which was interesting for the upfront tax, but really bad downstream for the other guys. And in the end, it was actually a management buyout from the guys that are there running and have been running the business for over a year now, with a model that's acceptable to me in terms of initial cash, future consideration based on the business being successful. And I had a business partner that wanted to retire. He was desperate to retire. He's 10 or 12 years older than me. And frankly, he needed to go anyway. So all things considered, we still made profit last year through the pandemic. We had to adjust quite dramatically, but still kept it profitable. And then managed to get the HMRC to agree to the management buyout and then authorize our entrepreneurs relief up front, so that we can sleep at night, not knowing that we're not going to have a big tax bill down the road. So I now give the managers and the new owners of the business kind of up to a day a week, and they keep me on as a non-exec director until the loan notes have been repaid. So I've got a bit of cash as initial consideration, and then future consideration, I've got a salary, pension contribution, loan notes, interest, and some shares that are worth probably 30% of the ultimate sale value of the business downstream.
Yeah, so quite often you can make more in that secondary buyout than you can in the first one, as long as the business performs. And that's the whole idea of any acquisition, isn't it? To buy a business that performs better in the future. So that 30% could be a very, I mean, it may not be, but it could be a very nice amount of money 3 to 5 years into the future.
Yeah, that's so that's the plan. I was getting a bit bored with the business anyway. It was kind of like, okay, I've been here, I've done that, and I came across your podcast probably back in May of last year when we were going to HMRC. And I was thinking, okay, so what am I going to do next? Because I like playing golf, but I'm not really every day, all day. So what am I going to do? And it was something like, don't run the marathon, only do the last 500 yards. Why would you go through the hassle of setting up a business, the website, the team building, all of that? And I thought, oh, this is ringing so many bells that I thought, yeah, no, that is exactly what I want to be. And I'd already said to people, I want to be an investor and not an operator.
Yes.
But actually how to transition from A to B in a sensible kind of way was then how do I want to plan this? So selling the business was kind of part one of the plan. And then part two is kind of looking at different sectors. I'm actually looking at the early childcare sector.
Oh, you're a competitor.
I'm little baby cheese. I'm not even baby Bell yet.
You know what? There are so many to go around. I've definitely got 4 people on my client program that are one was already in the sector anyway before me, and the other 3 are entering the sector. So I'm kind of training my competitors, and I have absolutely no problem with that because there are thousands of acquisitions to go around. Yeah. I only need another 50. So there's plenty to share.
You'll have it done by the time I get my first 5 on the board.
We're in a bit of a hurry. So yeah, we're moving fast.
Yeah, my kids are. I've got 4 kids, and 3 of them are in nursery, childcare, and teaching, and they want to do something to increase their earnings. And I said, okay. So one's just finished a law degree, but is teaching part-time. One is full-time teacher, and the other one is doing child play therapy at uni. Okay. So, when I was talking to my wife, I was like, the thing I'd like to do is actually help my kids do something. So what are they interested in? What do they want to do? So I've come at it from a bit of a reverse angle, which is, I know how to run a business. I can manage the financials of it, the marketing side, all of that kind of stuff. I can value a business now because I've had to value my own business, God knows how many times. And I can build the financial. I'm confident on all that stuff, but I don't want to be the operator. There's better people than me to operate these businesses. So I was looking at accountancy firms, because they have a long-term recurring revenue model. But I started doing an accountancy degree when I was at uni, and I only lasted 1 month, and I was a bit worried that I'd end up doing the same thing. Not recruitment, not consulting, had to be something new. So if I can help my kids get established with a group of 5 to 10 nurseries over the next year or 2, then that'd be a good start, a good platform to then kind of build it up.
That's a great plan. And I think the way you're thinking about the future is a smart way of doing it, because a business isn't just about day-to-day income. It's about creating something that survives beyond our lifetime, and it doesn't necessarily mean that your children will want to continue it for the rest of their lives, but it provides a value that could be realized in the future and realized for millions of pounds. So it's a great plan, and I think you're doing absolutely the right thing.
Yeah. So I've only just started my LinkedIn outreach to nursery managers around the country. That started yesterday. I've got my using my previous knowledge of LinkedIn and outreach marketing and all that kind of stuff. So that's automated and running at the moment. So I'm getting more into the sector now that the drama of the sale is past. So yeah, we'll see. I've got an ideal investment model built of, okay, if I see something, can I assess it quite quickly? I'm sure that'll change the first time I have a conversation with someone.
Well, it does. This is the thing, is that what works well on paper isn't necessarily what works in the real world. Yeah, the sort of the nitty gritty of actually talking to an owner. And so I've done 28 acquisitions in this sector in the last 20 months.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got another 9 that are completing imminently. So, every single one is slightly different.
Yeah.
So I would say 80% is the same, 20% is different. And it's that 20% is where the magic happens, because you have to adapt to the situation. And as you may have heard me say, Alan, the more you know about buying a business, the better. So if you know more about buying a business than the other person knows about selling it, then you're going to be okay. But if you sit opposite someone who knows way more about selling a business than you know about buying, then you might be at a slight disadvantage in that meeting.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you have got experience, and you're approaching it in the right way.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to it, and getting the website set up, doing all of the stuff that I used to do on my own, and now teaching my daughter, okay, this is the process that we're going to go through, and I'll take the commercial lead and the negotiation lead, and then she'll take the, okay, what are we going to do in the first 30, 60 days in each setting, and how can she learn the day-to-day interaction and management of the business. And she's worked with me before, so she's worked in my business previously, so she knows what she's letting herself in for.
Well, that's the thing with businesses where there's family members involved. We've actually got a policy of exiting all the family members at the same time as the sellers.
Yeah,
because sometimes it can be. I was in one of the nurseries this week and discovered that the seller's wife is actually the cook. she's in there every day cooking. So that was an interesting one. I hadn't actually expected to find her in the kitchen. But yeah, so what would you say you've learned from your sales process that would be beneficial to the listeners of this podcast?
Yeah, I think the number one is be realistic about the value of your business, and don't get too distracted by inflated valuations that you get from others, especially brokers. And with PE guys, you really need to understand the way that they make money is really important. It cost me quite a lot of money building a team to manage the business in preparation for selling to PE, and ultimately that didn't work. And actually, it cost me a lot because of your operational costs go up significantly, so your profits come down, and then you have to A, explain that, and B, survive without those operational profits. I think shareholders and having multiple shareholders, be very wary. Make sure you have a really good lawyer, that before you engage with them and do those shareholder agreements, that you have a way out of it that is.
Well, I mean,
you want to plan for success, but you need to prepare for it.
You don't want your minority shareholders frustrating the sale by saying they don't like the deal. You need to have the control over that, and even if there's a parity of shareholding, someone has to make the final decision. I mean, one person wants to sell, one person doesn't. I mean, God, that's a terrible deadlock scenario, which is why that shareholders agreement. And I've fallen foul of this. I mean, I had a partnership that was absolutely toxic, and it just destroyed the business, really. So you're absolutely right. I mean, that's a great piece of advice for everyone.
Yeah, I think the next piece is getting HMRC approval on the construct of the deal. Actually does two things. in my situation. It confirmed the parameters of the deal. And then actually, once you've got the approval from HMRC, you can't change it, and neither can anybody else, because you say, look, no, this in black and white is what we said to HMRC, and I'm not changing one element of that, because of that would put me in risk of a bigger tax bill in the future. So that is the deal. It really helps solidify it. And then whenever there's debate downstream, actually, you just go back to that document and say, no, this is what HMRC approved this deal on the basis of. And whilst that takes a couple of months to get approval, actually now I'm confident that the deal that I've done has been approved. And actually I've got lawyers that have said, yeah, that's fine. I pay my tax, and then it's, they're not going to come back. And better do, otherwise my lawyers need to pick up the bill. So I would say, whilst entrepreneurs relief is bandied about a bit, getting approval from HMRC kind of seals the deal as far as I was concerned, and that makes it very easy to sleep at night. So there's no comeback from HMRC, and what's going to happen over the next few years, I think that's quite valuable.
Well, it is. I mean, the government wants to collect in as much tax as possible, so disposals like yours, will come under scrutiny. Because every penny counts, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's worth a lot of money. So, and I think the looking at the risk profile of the different deal approaches, had I done that properly, I would have probably saved myself a year. So when I talk about the risk, I mean the risk of the deal actually completing. So the risk with PE of the deal completing or not, actually, as it happens, turned out to be very high, but I didn't know that at the time. The risk profile of an employee ownership trust actually was probably medium risk, but the risk of a management buyout of people that are already operational in the business was actually very low. And the legals were a lot easier, a lot quicker. The warranties were a lot less because they run the business day to day.
Absolutely, they know what risks are.
Yeah, and the value for me and it's a much more flexible approach to doing a deal. So my partner could retire, whereas I could still keep an interest ongoing in the business, has made that deal actually the most, the least risky option of the route to exit.
And was there a specialist MBO funder involved?
No, we hadn't borrowed money, so we had all the value that we took was cash, free cash in the business, and we've also left some trading value in the business for them to carry on trading without raising debt finance.
Okay.
The plan is that these guys will now be directors for 2 years, and then they will get funding to complete the buyout of my business partner and me. So
those remaining shares. Okay. Yeah, which would be a lot easier if they've been running it for 2 years.
If they've been running it for 2 years, actually they'll get better terms, much more confidence from the bank.
And your 30% will be worth more. It'll be we hope a bigger business and worth more. So that's something to look forward to.
Look forward to, absolutely.
Alan, you've been a great guest. Thank you very much for showing us a different side of the M&A world. We usually talk about buying businesses, but talking about selling is also very interesting as well. And I look forward to hearing more about your journey in the early years sector. So, Alan Finley, thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Jonathan.